What's up, builder fam? Thank you for clicking on this video. I got a banger for you today. This is my top selling product. I had no idea how many people enjoyed playing chess or how popular chess really truly is, but I got a big one for you today. Thank you for clicking on this video. If you're not already, please make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get into this build. All right, the first step in building a chessboard is number one, you have to cut the slot. So I already have that done here, didn't show that process, but just these are 2-inch strips and it's about 20 inches long. These are milled down to about a quarter of an inch, and that's just gonna give me a good solid, doesn't need to be super thick, right? And you also don't have to worry about wood movement, but you're just gonna orient them alternating. So one light color, one dark color, one light color, one dark color. And you're just going to do that. So the one on the far end should be different from the one on the other end. So the white one should be closest there, you see. And then on the far left side of the screen, it should be a walnut. This is birch and walnut wood that I used here. This is going to give me a good contrast between the two colors. I do typically wiggle the boards back and forth. This just helps spread out the glue a little bit more. So I did spread it. You saw me earlier spreading that glue out across the seam, so it's nice coverage. This just spreads the glue and makes sure the full surface of the wood on the side is covered in glue. After I get that done, I can move into clamping the seams. So I do clamp the seams just where there may be a little bit of lippage. I want this panel to be as flat as possible. And of course, these other clamps that I put on here aren't squeezing the boards together, but they are keeping the seams very, very flat and together. Without these, I would be having to do a lot more sanding later. So this just kind of prevents that. It helps keep the boards a lot more flat and the seams a little bit easier for me to sand later. Once I got that all glued up and the glue dried and everything was good, I could run it through the table saw. So each slot, or each slat, I should say, was 2 inches. So I set my table saw fence to 2 inches here, right? This is going to give me a perfect square. As you can see there, I'm just going to run it through and create a bunch of strips. In total, I'm going to need 8 strips. So that's going to 8 times 8, I believe, is 64. And so that's how many squares there are on a chessboard. So I'm going to need 8 strips. I typically make this board a little bit longer, right? If I was only doing 8, technically that would only be 16 inches. Like I said, it was 20 inches. So that's just going to give me some extra wiggle room. There is going to be situations sometimes where you are going to damage one, you're going to need an extra. So just not having to mill up everything again makes it really easy if you already have some extras. So I typically cut 2 or 3 extras, and if I don't use them here, I'll end up using them on the next project. This to me is the most satisfying part. This is really where you see that chessboard come to life. So this is how you make the chessboard actually, right? So you take those strips, and this is why it's really important to have one on opposite ends, right? So you don't want the pattern to be the exact same. 8 boards, you space them out light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. And so all I'm doing here is taking those slats that I then just cut up, and I'm going to glue them together here. And every other square, I'm going to flip over. And this is going to give me the chessboard pattern. Now, these gaps look a little crazy, but these clamps are going to pull them together really nicely. Also, the warps and bows, I'm going to do the same thing I did earlier, right? I'm going to use some clamps on the seams where there is a little bit of lippage, and I'm going to go ahead and clamp it up that way. Another thing I do is I have a 13-inch planer, so I like to run these through the planer, make sure they get nice and flat, and cut off all the extra glue, squeeze out that sort of thing to reduce sanding. So I glue up one side and one side, and once those are done, I'll run those 4 through the planer. That's going to enable me to then manage just one glue seam when I glue the final thing together in the middle. And it's a lot easier for me to manage, right? I can sand one seam pretty easily. This eliminates me from having to sand all of them. So if I was to glue this together, of course, it would be a lot wider than that 13-inch planer I have. So this is kind of my workaround. I glue up half and half. You can put them in the same clamps, just obviously make sure you're not putting any glue in between that middle seam, and you'll be good. Spread the glue out and clamp it up. We're good to go. Now that I got the boards out of the clamps, as you can see, this is the bottom. I'm putting a bunch of glue. And so the next step for me is to glue this to the actual plywood panel itself. This is how the board gets its thickness. And also what I do here is I just cut this little oversized. So of course the chessboard with 2-inch pieces with 8 each. That's going to be about 16 inches wide. So I cut this to about 18 by 18, right? A little bit over, and I'm going to put this board in the corner. This is going to give me two reference edges that after the glue dries, I can use then to trim up the board to final size. Um, but just clamp it down, put some glue, clamp it down. Just trigger clamps is good here. No need for the big boys. Just go ahead and throw some trigger clamps on there in the corners. Wipe out the squeeze out as much as I can, and it's coming along pretty good. This is about it. Got everything sanded and planed. As you can see, the top is looking very, very good. I guess I did need some of the big clamps to pull it completely flush. Then just going in and finishing up with some trigger clamps. Now that that's in the clamps is gluing up, the large majority of the board is done. The last thing I have really that I need to do other than finishing is I need to cut the miters for the trim. This is called trim nose molding, I believe. I get it in long 10-foot strips or pieces, but I like this because it gives a nice edge and it also matches the same wood that I use, right? This is birch molding, and so I cut 45-degree angles. I just set this gauge on my table saw at 45 degrees, run it through, and making sure that I come out both sides, right? That angle is completely at 45. And I'm essentially just going to wrap this around the board like it was a picture frame. So I already have two on here. This is the piece that I just cut, and it's going to fit right into that slot. I just apply some glue on the back. This also is going to clean up that plywood edge, so you don't want to see any plywood, obviously, right? So this just covers that edge and it fits in there perfectly. I glue all sides together and it comes out really good. All I have to do afterwards is just sand it, stain it, and put the finish on it. And it all comes out looking really, really good. Now we can go ahead and get a few clamps on there. This is just going to hold everything nice, flat, and straight and level. Once that's done, we can move into finishing. This is it. Just making sure that glue, of course, is going to make things slide around a little bit. So the clamps just hold it nice and flat. You only need the clamps for about 30 minutes, but those 30 minutes are very critical. If not, this board is going to end up being crooked, and then you have a lot bigger problems later down the road. Now that we got those boards out of clamps, everything is good. Everything glued up really, really nice, actually. You can see how tight those miters came out, so that's all good. We just need to get everything sanded up. So before you can apply a finish, you need to hit the final sanding. So this is, I think I had already sanded probably 80 grit to get all of the glue and everything off. So this is probably 120, and then I moved up to 220. That's typically where I stop for my projects, is at 220. If you're happy with how your project looks when it's like this and just sanded, you're going to be very, very happy with how it looks whenever it's stained. The stain just brings out the natural colors of the wood, and sanding is very, very critical and essential. So make sure you get in all of those gaps all around the board. I used a piece of sandpaper here, just kind of folded it over to get in those tight areas where obviously my sander can't fit, but you need to sand everything to the same grits. It's going to allow your stain to look very, very good across all angles of your piece. Now we can move into what I believe to be one of the most important parts of the project, and that's finishing. If your finish doesn't look good, it kind of cancels out all the hard work you did to get here. I typically go with Minwax polyacrylic on a lot of my projects. I believe this is a matte finish, but I also use satin. Those are going to give you a little bit more of a modern look. I like this product because it goes on easy, right? It's water based. It's going to dry quickly. You can really stack layers of stain within, or I guess layers of finish within a couple hours, and it dries quickly. It's very easy to use. All you're going to do is just get a little bit of finish on your brush and go in the direction with the grain. You want to make sure you are applying it in the same direction that the grain is flowing. Other than that, it's going to kind of self level. So you may see some brush strokes, but as it dries, it kind of self levels itself out. You just don't overwork it, and you're going to get a good finish. And just like that, this project is a wrap. The one thing I didn't show is me installing the rubber feet on the bottom. I did just include those so it's not sliding around and it's nice and sturdy, stays put as you're using it. As you can see, the pieces on there, it turned out really, really nice. I'm very, very happy to make these. I've made a ton of them. I didn't understand how many people truly enjoyed playing chess, but this is definitely my top selling product. I've sold a bunch of these. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, make sure you keep building.